Welcome to Levels of Connection, where we discuss how human connections work and why they're so important. Welcome to Levels of Connection. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Nick Costides. I loved my conversation with Nick. He really dives into finding our humanity and connecting with other humans. And he also talks about being good to other people without having any expectations. Comes back to you in spades. I love that. Enjoy. Nick, welcome to Levels of Connection.
Thank you, Stefanos. Glad to be here.
Really good to have you. And Nick, you are a former president of information technology at UPS. You're retired, but you're extremely active. I admire what you do. Most people don't do it in their 30s and 40s. So your retirement is really sort of an overdrive in activity, both in not-for-profit and in boards of directors on a global scale. So I really appreciate you taking the time for our chat today.
Thank you.
Um, Talking about connections, you have so many broad connections on a local and a global basis. Let's start from there. What does even connecting mean to you, Nick?
It's interesting. I have this philosophy of life that talks about the business world versus our personal lives. And, in our personal lives, we randomly connect with humans through interactions. And sometimes we go through life and we wonder, how did that person become my spouse? How did that person become my best friend? And, to me, those are the best connections, the ones that we make. We run into people accidentally and we find some common ground that we grow together with. In the business world, I find that connections are more purposeful. We all enter the business world thinking about our careers. We have CEOs trying to raise capital. We have business development leaders trying to sell services and products. And we're all making purposeful connections to achieve those goals. It's very different. One is more, I would say, more haphazard and probably the most pleasant. And the other is more focused and focused and goal oriented, if you will.
It's really interesting. How were you at connecting as a kid?
As a kid, I think all kids, to some degree, have, in some cases, challenges. They're shy. In some cases, they don't understand the world, and so you try to connect and you try to belong.
Mm.
And in some cases, as you grow up, you try to become what you're trying to connect to because you think that's where you should be, right? So in school, is it the cool kids? Is it the cheerleaders? Is it the folks that play music in the band? But maybe none of those are your personas, right? But you try really hard
Yeah.
to see where you're going to plug in,
Yeah, and I remember as a kid, I had no idea how to connect with others, but my curiosity was bigger than my fears, so I was fumbling around and trying to find my way around doing that. And a lot of what's driving me today for creating this channel is my curiosity and speaking to seasoned professionals and experienced people like you, and getting their feedback and their pointers on how to create a habit with connecting. What would be some advice that you would give to our listeners on how to create a habit of connecting, especially in the business world?
Yeah. What's interesting in the business world is I really believe that a lot of the connections that we make are superficial. And I think people are looking for that human connection. And they're looking for that human connection in a lot of different ways. Some of it is a personal handwritten note, something that people don't see very often. Some of it is just looking into somebody's eyes. But I think it's important that you connect with people at the human level. That's the most important. And I'll tell you that in business, sometimes it's hard. Leaders are running from topic to topic. You almost observe the crowd to see who you need to lean into and who you need to lean away from, right? Where that connection is going to create value, or it's not going to create value. But in the end, that sea of people are humans. And every human, no matter what their role, no matter what their job title, all wants to be treated exactly the same. And I think in the business world, it took me a long time to learn that. You learn it as a human. You know how
Mm.
you want to be treated, right? The golden rule.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a leader, you're busy getting results. And I worked for a corporate culture that I would say was a tough love kind of corporate culture. And I would say growing up into leadership taught me behaviors that probably were the antithesis of what I'm talking about today. I think,
Mm.
you know, treating everyone as an individual, learning what that individual is about, caring about that individual is very important. But I would tell you, in the hustle and bustle of the business world, it's sometimes hard to achieve that. And people feel left behind. They feel
Yeah.
ignored, you know. A short story, I was at a volunteer event with my spouse who volunteers a lot in a nonprofit. And the nonprofit only knows me because I'm the donor. And during the event, I was taken back because the CEO of the nonprofit came to me to recognize me. And then, secondarily recognize the volunteer who
Mm.
gives a lot of sweat, blood, and tears to the organization. Their connection was misplaced.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
placed their connection on the money rather than the human. And that
Yeah.
personally bothered me. And but I think we all want that. We all want that human connection. So
And you grew up career-wise in a UPS where it was all the growth years, right? And all the creation of the real steep growth curve. Um, and you mentioned the challenges of meeting your goals, meeting your targets, and also maintaining that human connections, the connection with
yeah,
your peers, with the people that report to you, the people that you report to, also vendors and others outside of that. What was did you have like a realization moment when you were on that tough ride that I'm losing sort of my humanity to the goal of the whole process?
it took me a long way through that journey to realize it. You don't know
Mm.
it when you're in it, right? Because to your point, we were growing. My career was growing. We were busy. And it took me a long time to look back. And one of the things that I realized was I was building connections with good humans. In other words, just like in my personal life, I was randomly getting close to individuals that, believe it or not, didn't have any power. So I
Mm.
wasn't making relationships up, right? I was making my own way, but I wasn't following coattails, if you will.
Hmm. Hmm.
But if I look in the rearview mirror on my career today, the people that I consider friends and close colleagues from that 30-year chapter of my life are not my peers. They're not the people that I reported to. They're the people that worked for me. They're the people I worked with. I
Mm.
seem to get along better with just regular people. We find bonding and we find common ground on things that are much more important than work. And so as I look in the rearview mirror of my career, I can count on one hand those that I say are meaningful relationships. And none of them have titles of grandeur.
Mm.
None of these people are power players. They're just regular people that somehow we connected. And I can't tell you how we did it. It's like any other friend that you might have. But it took a career to look back. And I think it's important now that people, as they approach every business relationship, have to know that people are always looking at them. People are always judging them, right? I used to tell people that every interaction is a performance appraisal. Your peers, your bosses, your vendors, your clients, everybody's evaluating you. But the thing that is common from everybody is how you touch them. And
Mm.
the moment you personally touch them, the moment you connect with them about family, you connect with them about a topic that's not business related, that connection is special. And that connection can take the business connection even further. You know, I made a statement a moment ago about where I think I made good connections in the business world, and it wasn't with some of the leaders. Uh, but if I look today, uh, I have a handful of very good friends that I can call very good friends. Two of them I met in the business world. One of them we worked together. One of them actually worked for me, and we later became peers.
Mhm.
But in the end, we were just friends. We connected in some way in the heat of battle, in the heat of of what we were doing. Again, one reported to me, the other, we were on a team together at a
Yeah.
very early stage of my career. And yet, in those times, the moments we shared, the personal stories we shared, that's what connected us. And those friendships are now 35 years old. So, they came from a very different place, and they didn't come from needing to be connected to someone to make the sale or being connected to someone to help improve your career. It was because we were doing something together. It placed us in the same room, the same cubicle, the same conference room, but we connected on something personal. We may have looked at a picture and said, "Oh, is that a national park? Do you hike?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait a minute. You went to see that band? I like that band." And you see, through all of this, it's the human connection that builds the relationships. And in business, people are always trying to connect, but the connection is not here in the heart. It's very superficial.
I love that. I was about ready to say it's the heart first and the process second. And from your stories, it's evident that that's the primary, and that was the primary driver, and those relationships are still around, and they're long lasting. Um,
Yeah, but I will tell you, you mentioned my bio. I mean, I've been retired from an operating role for about three and a
mhm.
half years. And this is the time when you can look back. If I look back, I can't jive what I just said with some of my behaviors. Yet today, there are people that come to me and thank me for the time, for our engagement. Uh, and it's very interesting. It takes this period to reflect. You have to get out of that operating role to look back. And, I look back now and I can see the things that I did that, where I say it's important to touch the human and really touch them at the human level. But where I didn't do that because the job or the pressure of the moment made me behave differently. And I think about those moments now more than anything. I
Mm.
actually, the people that you might have yelled at on a tough day, a moment where you didn't behave well as a leader because everyone was under pressure. And you get to this chapter and you realize, what was the pressure? We might be delayed in a project. We might be over budget. We might miss the earnings. That's nice. Is everybody healthy? Is everybody safe?
Mm.
That's more important. And you see, when you put those values into perspective, you think very differently. And I think the business world has you very focused on things, and the energy and the intensity are about things that are not as important as human life. It's not as important as our health. And if I look back at my career, I don't think I was a good human for a lot of it. And I think it took me a period of reflection to get my humanity back. I see others that put on a facade of humanity, and when the door closes, they can't remember the 15 people they talked to because that was a means to an ends. I want people to like me so they vote for me. I want people to like me so they don't give me a bad score on the employee relations survey. That's what I see in the business world. I see a lot of fake humanity. But it took me a while to reflect on what real humanity is. And real humanity is what your mom taught you. It's be good to everybody. It's listen to everybody. It doesn't matter if they're the butcher, the baker, or the CEO. We're all the same. We all feel the same. We're all motivated the same way. And I think we lose it as executives. We lose sight of that.
How long after retirement did it take you sort of to relax a bit and wind down, but get out of that hustle and bustle? And by the way,
Oh,
you do a lot of things today as well, but maybe it's at a different
yeah.
rhythm, and because I know your schedule, you have a lot of things going on, and you're helping a lot of organizations and people, adding a lot of value, but you're doing it in a different way, from what I'm understanding.
Yeah. It took me, I came out of a very large corporation, and my title and that brand is very popular. So, yes, I got very busy on boards, advising companies, advising
Mm,
investors, advising companies of various stages, and then mentoring a lot of individuals. Uh, it took me about a year, though, I would say, to slow down a little bit
mm,
and also begin to realize that the business persona was not the persona. It was just a facade. And that and it was also that moment that I began to change my talk track when I was mentoring. So I have a lot of leaders that are ready to exit, CEOs, CXOs that are either going to IPO, they're going to have their company acquired, or they might be ready to retire. And they all call me up with energy, asking me what they want to do next and how can they get on boards and how can they advise. And 3.5 years ago, I would tell people a story that started with how great they are, what a great brand they are, and they shouldn't have a problem, and they're going to get very busy very fast. I don't start that way anymore. Today, I tell them not to worry about the business side of this chapter of their world. I tell them that they've ignored a lot of humans in their family, in their extended family, their relatives, their friends. They had a lot of excuses why they couldn't show up. They were on a business trip. There was a
Mm.
very important product release. Up, we had an earnings call. Up, we're doing budget cuts today. Got to be in a meeting, can't make it. I tell them now, this is the chapter to touch every human that you ignored. This is the chapter to show up at every event, every wedding, every engagement, every birthday party. And then when you get bored, I tell them, then call me up and ask me about the business world. That's a big change for me because, to be honest with you, I grew up in poverty. So I have this personality of wanting to draw, a driven personality, always wanting to
Mhm.
accumulate, never trying to look back. And, I always believed that, telling people to continue to run was the right answer. And now I'm telling them to slow down. I'm telling them to go in their backyard and smell the roses legitimately. Uh, some of it has to do with career, Stefanos. Some of
Mhm.
it has to do with age. I think people don't realize you get to a certain point in your life and you look back and then you look at where you are and you look at the people around you and it gives you a perspective. And the one thing that is constant in your life as humans, there's always going to be humans there. There have been people that have been with you forever. They didn't know you when you were poor. They
Mm.
didn't care that you got rich. They don't judge you, right? But they've been there and they're always with you. Uh, your parents, they love you unconditionally. They don't know how you're going to turn out, but whatever left and right turn you make, they're with you along the way, right? Middle of your journey, your spouse joins you. They think they figured it out, but they haven't really figured you out. It takes about a lifetime to figure you out, right? But in the end, these are human connections that last a long time. And when you look back at them, they weren't purposeful.
Mm.
They happened. You happened to be in a group. It was a large group, and this one person was there, and you connected in some way. The eyes touched, a voice said something, and you heard it in a way that no one else did. To me, that's a real connection. I can't describe that in any scientific words. I can't describe that in any business terms. To me, that's a real connection, and you get them in business. You do make friends in the business world. But coming out of an organization that on any given day was 450, 500, 650,000 people,
Mm.
depending on what they say in their earnings announcement, this is how many friends, true friends, people that when they call you up, you'll get on a plane and fly to their hospital bed.
Yeah.
These are the people that'll come and help you move that I have on one hand, right? Because real connections were made. And you can't learn that. You can't go through a class on that. You can feel that. That's the human connection. You can feel it. And I know we're trying to teach people, how to make connections. I think the message I usually have for people is treat everybody like the golden rule. Just treat
Mm.
all humans like humans. Doesn't matter what level you're at. Doesn't matter who you are. You're not better than anybody. Just be good to people. Uh, and you'll be surprised, when you're good to people and you don't expect anything, the world comes back to you in spades. You get more in return than you could ever imagine.
Is that what you would tell 20-year-old Nick?
I would tell 20-year-olds a couple of things. One is I do believe that in the business world, you have to be driven, you have to be focused, you have to understand how to navigate your path, and you have to work hard. But I would also tell that 20-something year old that all the people around you are humans and none of them can be sacrificed. And you
Mm.
have to treat everyone with respect, no matter who they are. And you're never better than everybody. When you achieve something, you feel great about it. You know, you might be the only one that gets that award. It doesn't make you number one. It just makes you the only one that got the award. You're still a human. So I think that's what I would tell people is don't lose your humanity. Be good
Mm.
to everybody as you're coming up. Remember everybody and show up. You know, the business world in your career is not as important as visiting that sick friend. It's not as important as your child's milestone, graduation, or birthday. That's what I would tell that person. You know, type A business people, they just work, man. They work for 30 or 40 years. Then they look back and they have one big pile of money and one small pile of friends. This
We
gets
we
you nowhere.
get we get lost in the titles and in the busyness, right?
And we identify ourselves. You know, my company that I came from, we all identify ourselves with the brand.
Mm.
And we all say that our blood runs the color of the brand. It's very interesting. We worked very hard for that company. I would tell you, and anybody that tells you differently is lying to themselves. We all put business first. We all put company first. Family came second.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so if I were going to redo any portion of that career, family always come, even though you think you're doing it, you're balancing everything. You know, the family is always number one. You know, careers come and go. Money is a means to an end, but you don't realize it when you're in the game. So you just got to be good to everybody. Be kind to everybody and show up. And in the end, they'll show up for you. I'm very blessed in this chapter. I think I was a pretty tough boss. I didn't think I made a lot of friends. And today in this chapter, when people who work for me don't need to reach out to me, right?
Mm.
I should be their ghost of Christmas past. They call up. They go, hey, I'm in Atlanta. You want to have dinner? Hey, we're going on this vacation. You want to join us? I'm more surprised, Stefanos, than anyone. And I think it's because people feel that human connection at the end of the day. You know, they just want you to be honest with them, transparent, and they just want you to, you know, just be there for them. So.
Mm. And do you see that also in the not-for-profit world or only in the for-profit business side of things? What's the difference now that you are dealing more on the with the not-for-profit side of things as well?
You know, in the nonprofit world, there's a lot of compassion for the mission. There's a lot of engagement for the mission. And I think people are naturally more connected to the human. Like
Mm.
I see more of that. I see more recognition of people's acts, even the smallest. You know, I like being on a nonprofit board because when you lean in and do more, just a little bit more than a board member, you know, you make a
Yeah.
connection, you volunteer to help with something, you get more thanks for something that was so small than you know, so you do get a lot of that in the nonprofit world. People make you feel good. People
Mm.
make you feel valued. People make you feel like you're a person. I see it. Now, I'm not going to tell you that, you know, in a large nonprofit where the CEO is making hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're not thinking about their career too. But in general, the vibe is much
Yeah.
different, you know?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, early stage companies too. I've met some early stage founders recently that would never survive in a Fortune 500. But you know what? They're building some amazing companies. They've got some amazing cultures. And with small teams of 18 to 20 to 30 people, I hear their employees use the word love,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
you know, about their boss. I mean, wow. And I'm watching early stage founders that never worked in a large company, that never were impacted by others, create their own culture. And some of it is just doing what their parents told them to do. Just be good people. Work hard, be good to everybody. And it's working for them. It's that simple. Work hard, be good to everybody, you know?
Nick, you've spanned the globe with your career. Talk to me a little bit about the different cultures and the different countries, or how did you manage that in such a um, vast array of duties across different countries.
Well, I'm first generation American, and my father immigrated to the country after World War II, and
Mm,
eventually found the path to citizenship. I'll leave it that way. Uh, and so, not being American first, I think was good as I got around the world. But I noticed something very interesting. I noticed that everyone was basically the same, right? That religion and politics divided us.
mm.
And but other than that, if you walk into a pub anywhere in the world, people are having a drink. Sometimes they're having the same drink. People will laugh at the same joke. Young men, no matter what their religion, no matter how conservative their religion, will still smile when a pretty girl walks by. And so I realized traveling the world that people were people, and that those were our differences. And, I'm Greek by descent. I know we have the same
Yeah.
uh, culture, but my very first business trip to Turkey, I committed a faux pas. I'm sitting in a restaurant, in a beautiful restaurant in Istanbul, with a bunch of my uh, employees that worked for me in that region. And I noticed something. We all looked alike. We're all basically the same height. You know what? We all basically had the same hairline. And on the table were all the foods that I ate as a child.
Yeah.
And, usually traveling around Europe, Europeans, especially in Northern Europe, were taller than I am, lighter skinned than I am. But I felt very at home and very comfortable. And I said in my mind, I said, I don't understand. Why is it that the Greeks and the Turks don't get along? And then I found myself saying it out loud after a couple of drinks. And one of my employees was like, "Oh, humbly, was like, hey, it's just religion and politics. We all actually like each other. As a matter of fact, there's a really good restaurant about 2 hours into Greece, if you want to go." Right? But that's what I learned. I learned that we're all the
Yeah.
same.
Mm.
Humans are humans. They all just want to be treated well. They all want access to the same resources. They all want to be invested in the same way. So I didn't notice the difference in people, to be honest with you. You notice the slight cultural stuff, but I always told people I travel the world as me. I never learned the languages. I just went. Here I am. I'm in China. I'm in India. But I do adopt. The world is a beautiful place, and if you experience it, you have to experience it in an immersive way, right? You have to be open to the smells, the tastes, the religions. I carry with me today religious artifacts
Mm.
that have nothing to do with my religion, that I picked up in India, that I picked up in China, just because it's good stuff. And, and if somebody believes that it's good, it's connecting them closer to their version of God, why not? So if you look at my office, which you can't see on this video, you'll see symbols from other people's religions. I think it's important. You'll see feng shui in action.
There you go.
Only because you just pick up this stuff, right? A little bit of the goodness in the cultures. But I found people are the same, you know.
And with your after retiring, and you have redefined the way that you see people, that the way that you relate to people. That's what I'm hearing. How has that changed the way that you do business?
Well, it's interesting because I was very blessed to come from a company that's very popular in my retirement, having nothing to do with me. And I've had a thesis coming out that I didn't know if I could hold true to. One was whatever organizations or people I hang around with, I want to be able to create value. But I also said that I want to be able to socialize with them. In other words, if I can have a beer with you, I'm not a big
Mm.
drinker, but I use that as an analogy.
Hmm.
Can I have a
Hmm.
beer, or I can have a tea with you, or we can have a meal and we can laugh at a joke. And we both don't walk away going, man, that person making a face. Or,
Yeah.
that's part of it. I want to only hang around with people that I think are good humans in this chapter. And that's what I've been doing. As I've created a network
Yes.
accidentally of 80 advisors and partner companies. They're all good humans. People ask me, how we operate it. I say we operate it like a mom and pop business. It's all based on trust. There's a lot of high net worth individuals in there that are advising. I'm not going to chase them for their commission check. If they're of poor integrity, then we just exit them from the network quietly, So being with good people, people that I can break bread with, is the most important. The other thing is I prioritize my life today. I mean, I am busy, as you pointed out, but business is second. I organize my calendar around life,
Yeah.
only life. And then I don't have any other hobbies. So, outside of, I don't play golf. I'm not a big golfer. And I don't sit there and watch TV for Saturdays and Sundays for 4 or 5 hours watching sports. So I fill that time in with these kind of conversations and advising companies. But family first, friends first. It's something new for me. And I think it shouldn't have been new, but that's the difference, I think, today.
And you're enjoying it.
You know what? I'm enjoying every minute of it, because as you get older, things happen to humans. They get ill. Some leave us earlier than we plan. And so knowing now that I have the time at a young age, the health at a young age, and the means to be there for others that may not have any of the above is a blessing. And I count that as a blessing.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying to make up for lost time, So
Nick, for people that are listening to and watching this episode, if you had to advise them to take one step around connecting with other humans an hour after they watch this, what would you advise them to do?
I think they should appreciate every interaction. I think everyone that comes in their path, it's okay to touch them. It's okay to shake their hand. It's okay to look in their eyes. You may move on, but in that 1 second, you may make a connection that could be a connection for life. Don't rush off the stage after speaking because everybody wants your business card because they want to sell you something. It's okay to spend 5 minutes shaking their hands and collecting their business cards. You never know who you're going to meet. And so I think that's what's important. Don't rush by people. Rush towards people.
Thank you, Nick. Any last thoughts before we close this amazing chat that we've been having?
I appreciate, one, that you're doing this, Stefanos. I didn't know, I know you a couple of years, but I didn't know the topic of this show that you're putting on. And, I looked at your questions, and they weren't business questions. They hit me in the heart, right? And I think that's what was important, right? You're talking about levels of connection. We talked a lot today about personal interaction. We talked a lot about humanity. We didn't talk about how to get promoted. We didn't talk about how to get rich. We didn't talk about how to get poor. We didn't talk about how to run for office. I think what we'll find is if we're smiling and we're making other people smile, all those other things just happen. That's the message. Be true to yourself. Be true to everybody else. So,
Nick, thank you very much. Amazing. I really loved, I mean, I'm part of the network, so I always love our interactions. Today was extra special for me. So I appreciate it very much. And next time, you've never been in Cyprus, man. So you should be coming here soon.
I work for food. So
there you go. We've got great food in Cyprus. So you have an open invitation.
Yeah, no, I'd love to, and hopefully we can do more. It looks like you're doing some great things. We're still busy over here, and as you pointed out earlier. So,
Nick, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk soon. Thank you for watching today's episode with Nick Costides, and thank you for your continuous support to this channel. Please provide your comments below as to what you found useful from today. See you soon.